Hey everybody, welcome again to another episode of the ShopNotes Podcast. It's episode 139, and there is a delightful sort of symmetry in today's episode number. We're going to be talking about some new stuff happening here at Woodsmith and Popular Woodworking, some favorite tools that we have, just your general December woodworking chit-chat. I'm joined by John and Logan, as always, for a rollicking good time. Want to give a special shout out to our sponsor, Shaper Tools. They're the makers of the Shaper Origin. It's that handheld CNC router that brings digital precision to the craft of woodworking. You can tackle joinery, cabinetry, hardware installation, and more with speed and precision. Try it risk-free in your shop for 30 days. Visit shapertools.com to learn more. Also want to give a thanks to the listener who purchased a Shaper tool based on our discussions, both of the tool and the podcast sponsorship. So kudos to you, sir. We salute you.
Mm-hmm. Shout out to Nelson.
We're going to do one more podcast because he followed through on the sponsorship.
Yep.
Keep it coming, guys. We can keep doing one more.
I mean, to be fair, we do the podcast because of the support of the paid stuff that goes on around here. Let's be honest about that.
Oh, I was doing it out of guilt.
Right? I mean, I do have that over you guys.
I just do the podcast out of spite.
Right. Yeah.
That's fair. Yeah. That's the best work.
We called it the ShopNotes Podcast because the Rage podcast was already taken.
Yeah.
So. Mm-hmm. All right, so here's the funny part. Today, episode 139 of the podcast. And just yesterday, in podcast recording time, ShopNotes issue 139 is reborn, launched, pushed out into the universe. Mm-hmm. So,
like a phoenix.
Yes,
from the
it
ashes.
is like a phoenix. That's a good way of describing it. So you can conjure all of your Harry Potter and Star Wars imagery there.
Yep.
That it's the New Republic, Fox being reborn, all that kind of stuff.
Nerds.
There you go.
Yeah.
So it's pretty exciting because we've been talking about relaunching ShopNotes for a while. We all have a little soft, squishy part in our heart for ShopNotes Magazine, which is why the podcast is named ShopNotes Podcast, because we didn't want to see it pass away entirely. So our perseverance has paid off. So if you want to subscribe, it's a digital publication. We've talked about that before. It comes out quarterly, which means that it's 4 times a year for those people who watch soccer and not football. You can subscribe over at shopnotes.com. It's available on the Zinio app and through our website. So we've had some early adopters for the magazine already and some good feedback, so that's kind of fun. Logan, you even wrote an article for ShopNotes.
Yeah. So did Colin.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
kind of pulled everybody in.
Yeah.
Which one did you write?
I wrote the Craftsman tool cabinet.
Yeah.
Designed by our very own John Doyle.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
It's a classic team up, John and Logan.
Yep.
We figured it out.
John and Logan show. We threw a dash of Becky in there, so it's going to be entertaining.
Yeah.
There's going to be some head scratchers along the way.
Yep.
It's a ride that everybody needs to buckle in for.
Yep.
So, and I picked out my project for the next issue because it was a suggestion that I made long time ago.
Yeah.
Based on a set of cabinets that my buddy Jimmy Clues has in his shop. the Coleman style shop organization. And I think John's designing that one too, isn't he?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, once the band's back together, you can't break it back up. So
That's right.
So the tool cabinet, John, you want to talk a little bit about the design of it? We'll put an image of it on the show notes page.
Yeah, it's I mean, most shop cabinets you think of, they're, made out of plywood and not very pretty. They're more functional. This one is Craftsman-style. I think if you built it, you would be proud to put your heirloom tools in it, or hang it about anywhere in your house for display purposes. So it's one of those shop projects that could be a fine piece of furniture too. So I don't know, a lot of Craftsman elements. Yeah, it's got Craftsman elephants too. So
they are really big details.
Yeah. It's got I don't know. It's got square plugs, cover fill in the screw holes that are, proud. What else? It's been a while since we did this, so it's hard to think back. It's got glass doors with munions in it and drawers on the bottom. So I really sold it there, didn't I?
White.
Yeah.
It's
got
all
all the
white
stuff.
oak, so it's all white oak, so it's like super heavy, which is awesome.
Yes, it is. That's what I was thinking. It's like we have these projects that we built for this first issue of Shop Notes. It's like maybe we should do a promo where we give them away, but then it's like, how do you even ship something like that?
Oh god,
you'd have to-
shipping that would be miserable. Yeah.
So it's pretty heavy duty. So
We can do a sale or something like that, and it's like only for pickup.
yes,
Yep.
and you will need a pickup.
Of course, this whole time I can't get the image of a Craftsman-style elephant out of my head now. So
Think about that.
I feel like we got to get Chris on that. Chris, give me a green and green elephant.
Yes.
That would be like oddly like Indian Asian style, wouldn't it? Like
Yeah.
I'm thinking some like very stylized like Hindu type elephant. That'd be awesome.
Let's plug that into the AI photo generator and see what we get.
Dolly, yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Write that down as a project idea. Put that in. I don't know, Woodsmith or Popwood. That seems like that would be a good one. Maybe the Christmas ornament for you guys next year.
There you go.
That's right. Or carved elephant.
Yeah. Because nothing says Christmas like elephants.
Yep.
Although, speaking of which, a couple years ago, one of my kids as kids are growing and learning words, how they hear a word isn't necessarily the way that word is actually pronounced.
Yep.
So we were starting to decorate our tree, and my son at the time asked when we were going to put the garlic on the tree. Instead of garland. So that year I went out and carved a little bulb of garlic and then hung it on the tree, and then waited for people to notice it. So that was pretty funny.
Awesome.
And now every year when we pull it out, it's like, the garlic!
Yes.
It's very much the same way that our very own Becky hears words. I can
And
say this
uses
because she
them.
doesn't listen to the podcast. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we can say whatever we want here. We're safe.
Yeah. Becky is the fourth member of our AV club here.
Yep.
A small affiliation of folk that we have that were involved with all kinds of video and social media and whatever stuff a few years ago. And she brings light to our group.
Yeah.
And sometimes
And order.
stress.
Yeah. And stress and order. And sometimes we give the stress.
Right.
Probably
Yeah.
more of that.
She
We
also
stress
keeps us
her.
on task because we
Yes.
tend to drift as a group.
No. We're 139 podcasts into this. Nobody would have realized that.
Right.
Jeez.
Yeah. She's usually the one that's like, okay, guys, did you do a podcast this week?
Right.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
podcasts
So you
go
guys
out
can-
on Friday, and she's like, when she'll start on like Monday afternoon, actually. And she's like, did you guys podcast? Are you going to podcast? When are you going to podcast?
Yep. So you guys can send all your hate mail to bcrowdcheck@aimmedia.com, blaming her for these stupid things.
Right. So now when you say Coleman style cabinets, you mean like camp stove Coleman or
yes, that I believe so. I'm pretty sure the logo on there is the Coleman camp stove logo. And I don't know when they were made. They look like they're an early 2000s type cabinet.
Okay.
But they're just kind of cool, nice cabinets. They are, I want to say 3 or 4 drawer. I have a photo of them, and I might have linked a photo of them in that message I sent to the designers with it. They are deep drawer, so they're probably 10 to 12 inch tall drawers. They have aluminum or steel corner brackets that wrap around the edges of the drawers to the sides, and I feel like they're like riveted on. It just is a very cool style I found. I first saw it when I was at Jimmy's place. So, yeah, I'll see if I can find a photo to at least put up on the show notes page. But yeah, they were interesting, and they seem like they're probably modular. Oh yeah, so like actually Lowe's has some of them maybe still. But yeah, they come in different configurations. It's kind of like the old, not the old, I mean, gosh, they still make them. Like you go into Menards or Home Depot and they have a line of like garage cabinets where it's like,
Sure.
oh, buy the tall standing one and the 2 little ones and you make a workbench, or you can configure them however you want. It's kind of like those
okay.
things.
Kind of a modular one wall workshop type thing.
Yeah, without trying to be a one-wall workshop, but maybe that's a good way to take it, I don't know.
Yeah.
We got to take into the plywood costs into this decision-making process. Or MDF, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, it is fun to be able to work in a visual style too, because it's really easy to and there's a place for it, for just, plywood chunks cut out, screwed together, or dados and rabbits or whatever, and that's it. But adding a little flair to it is a nice touch, I think.
Yeah.
Even for shop cabinets.
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing wrong with having your garage or shop look good.
Yeah.
Well,
When
I
it
think
looks
that's
good, you feel good, and when you feel good, you work
you
good.
do good work. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's always been some of the appeal to me, like to a lot of the ShopNotes stuff, is it's like the projects in ShopNotes and Woodsmith. I mean, it never looks like a shop project, or never looks like a project that somebody would actually build for their shop. Or it's like, you know what, if I'm slapping this table saw sled together, I'm probably not going to put melamine and lacquer it, because ain't nobody got time for that except for the Woodsmith and ShopNotes guys. So I think that's some of the appeal to me, is it's like, hey, we can take what is shop storage, basic shop storage, cabinet with drawers, and we can aesthetically elevate it a little bit. I think that's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, it's like the tool cabinet that John designed for ShopNotes. It's Craftsman-style, white oak, looks amazing. And I know that, I've heard it from people around here, but then also from readers where they're building a ShopNotes project, where we've done those higher style ones. And, another member of the household is like, you're building that for your shop? That's too nice for your shop. It's coming in the house.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I even said that in that article when I wrote it. It's like, this is designed as a shop tool cabinet. I could see it going in somebody's study, in an office. In
Little liquor cabinet.
Exactly. Oh,
Yeah.
Bathroom storage cabinet. Any of that stuff.
No, it's pretty cool. So I got to do Chris Fitch router jig, which there's a strange dark corner of Chris Fitch's mind that works on router jigs. Well, jigs of all sorts. And so this one, he took a palm router motor and made a little carriage for it that allows you to do loose tenon joinery with this little router. So it's kind of about the size of a biscuit joiner / Festool domino.
Yep.
And it's got 2 little sliding tables on it, so you can do both side to side and depth control on it. So just by sliding the router motor and plunging it in, you can make mortises and work pieces and then use loose tenons on it. So that was pretty cool. That one, he went totally wizard on that one because it was... I know he was working on trying to be a little bit more complicated with it and then was able to find a happy medium of really nice functionality without turning this into a super bulky tool. So,
see, now it needs to get combined with the old ShopNotes, I think it was ShopNotes, air-powered biscuit plate joiner.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
It had the foot pedal on it.
Yeah, if we could like, wizard those two things together.
Right.
So it's like a ShopNotes domino machine.
Yes. See, and that's part of the problem is because you guys know that I've been working on a loose tenon mortiser on my own, off and on, mostly off recently.
Yep.
But it's like every time Chris does one of these, I'm like, that is super cool. That's exactly what I want to build. And then I get started on it, and then he comes out with something else. Mm-hmm. Darn it.
It's like when Blue Spruce gets a new tool out. That's what I do.
Right. Because Blue Spruce, they're in your head, man.
Mm-hmm. They are.
See, if I had the tools that Logan has, like all the planes and the Blue Spruce tools, I would have a nice tool cabinet, the Craftsman-style tool cabinet to put my tools in. Just my tools aren't worthy. So
it's on the Popwood list to do a great big old, like, double door tool cabinet with storage underneath, like a sawtill on the side. Like, it's on my list.
Okay.
And now that I have recruited one of the greats out of retirement to start doing designs,
all right,
putting Ted on it. Yep. So Becky's dad, we were speaking about earlier, Becky's dad, Ted was one of the Woodsmith original staff members.
He was
staff
the
member
original.
number 2. Yes, he was like staff 2.
After Don, it was Ted.
Yep. And Ted has done designs for a long time. He retired about 5 or 6 years ago. And I contacted him to start doing some freelance design for me, like CAD design. So it's like, hey, Ted, I need a design for a shave horse. He's like, here you go. It's like, yeah. So this is awesome. It takes a lot of the mental load off me, which is necessary.
Mm-hmm. Right. So here's a question that I have, and I think we've talked about this before. Big, impressive tool cabinets like that are super cool, but you never close the doors. Changed my mind.
I know. Nope, I agree with you. To me, it is more having a set of beautiful doors on there, maybe with some veneered panels or whatever,
right,
is more of a statement type piece.
Sure.
And a way to show off your craftsmanship.
Yeah.
Like, yes, if we're talking functionality wise, I'm not gonna go to the extreme and say pegboard's the best, but a wall of tools on an open front tool cabinet is probably functionally better.
Sure.
But if you want that nice aesthetic of being able to close the doors at some point, yeah. And I think for what I'm planning on doing with it, having it behind a bench, and it'll end up being a backdrop and some photos and stuff. Like, I think I want to be able to shut the doors to hide those shiny planes. You know what I mean? Because those can wreak havoc with lights and flashes and stuff. So
yeah,
I agree with you. Yes, however, I would never. I like the ability to add the doors.
Oh no, I'm not dissing it. It's just kind of interesting because, I think
you don't shut them. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, for a lot of people, who are familiar with woodworking folk, Christian Bexford is well known for his gigantic tool cabinet.
Yep.
In his shop in Maine, and it's got piano hinge doors on it, and that thing's never closed. Or like Mike Pekovich at Fine Woodworking, he's got a super cool wall cabinet. And they talk about being able to close the doors and keep the dust out, and it's kind of like fake shutters on a house.
Yep.
Yeah.
They look good there, but they're not doing shutter work. They're serving another purpose, which, like I said, is fine. It's just don't go into building a wall-mounted tool cabinet thinking that every night when you leave the shop you're closing the doors.
Correct. Now, the one thing I will say is I'm not a fan of, and this is a completely personal opinion, I'm not a fan of wall-hanging tool cabinets that are big. Because to me, it's like, why? Like, what are you really going to put under there? I would much rather have some form of a base on it with drawers or some form of storage underneath.
Yeah.
To me, that's more practical than saying, hey, I have this 25-inch deep tool cabinet. Maybe it's maybe it's only 14 inches when I open the doors, but still, that's a lot of wasted real estate, and you need a huge swing for those doors to open and close.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
Which is why we had that. Chris designed that. It was in like an English arts and crafts style, tall, floor standing bookcase that had big opening doors, but like you said,
the one with the diamond detail on the crown?
Yeah. And Logan started a walnut version of that.
Yeah. How did that go?
The walnut base. Wow, John.
I was just curious. I was thinking about that.
Somebody woke up sassy this morning. No, I started it. Yeah. I have the base done. Mm-hmm. I mean, like, the base is all done. I didn't build drawers for it, but the base is done. That was right after I started at Woodsmith, I think. Mm-hmm. I started that. So it's probably been down there for 5 years now, maybe 6. I decided it was a little boxier than I wanted.
That's fair.
Mm-hmm.
So what am I going to do with it? I have no idea.
Right.
Like, no idea.
Well, didn't you repurpose the base and you put a top on it for other stuff?
Mm-mm.
Oh, I thought you were going to do that.
No. I mean, my watchmaker's tool cabinet my watchmaker's cabinet kind of fits right on top of it, and it covers the Baltic birch because I didn't want to make the entire top out of walnut because it gets a big cabinet that goes over top. So I edged it with, like 5-inch walnut mitered on the corners, and then it's Baltic birch panel in the center. And it fits and covers that, but it looks disproportionate. Like, I just don't know what I'm going to do with it. I mean, my shop right now is going to get turned into a theater room. So maybe I'll use it as like a stand for like a popcorn machine and stuff, and put that in there. I don't know, maybe.
That'd be cool.
See, in today's money, that Baltic birch panel that you used is probably worth more than the walnut. So you should go back and harvest it from that project, and you
send
got
your kids to
something
college.
That's right. That's right. What's a 60 by 60 sheet of Baltic birch right now? 3/4 inch.
If you have to ask, you can't afford it.
Well, because a 60 by 60 sheet of Baltic birch is 25 board feet. Mm-hmm. So I was just trying to figure out what the board foot cost of a Baltic birch is.
I don't know, what did Mark say the 4x8 sheets were going for?
I mean, they have to be at 120, right?
Yeah, I was going to say 120 or 150.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if they're 150 by a 4x8 sheet, that is $4.68 per board foot. If we're talking a board foot.
So still reasonable.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you can buy like ash cheaper than that.
Yeah.
I mean, heck, you can buy planes on or riffs on oak for that.
Right.
Sometimes it wouldn't be as easy to work with for big panels, but
Right. So is there like a Baltic birch futures market?
I don't know. It may be like the Bitcoin of today. Like we should have bought it now, and then 30 years from now, everybody would be retired and living the high life.
Just before the Baltic birch exchange goes bankrupt.
Probably should have bought it before Russia invaded Ukraine. But,
We would have bought it January 1,
Yep, hindsight.
2022. Sold it on December 31st.
Yep. I mean, it's not guaranteed to go up in value.
Right.
But it probably will.
A special shout out to our sponsor, Shaper Tools. They're the makers of the Shaper Origin. It's that handheld CNC router that brings digital precision to the craft of woodworking. You can tackle joinery, cabinetry, hardware installation, and more with speed and precision. Try it risk-free in your shop for 30 days. Visit shapertools.com to learn more.
And that is your daily market report from the ShopNotes Podcast.
I will say that speaking of being somewhat of a nerd, when I was in college and couldn't really do any woodworking because of being in a dorm room, I was in Chicago, and our school had, for every dorm in the dorm buildings, every floor got a subscription to the Tribune. So I would check out the Chicago Board of Trade, CBOT, and look regularly at the futures market for softwood lumber, because I think that's by per 1,000 board foot or something like that, which was always kind of interesting. I mean, that's obviously construction lumber, your 2x4s and all that sort of stuff, but it was interesting to kind of watch trends to see where it was going and see, based seasonally and how the economy was rolling at the time. And
Yeah.
Speaking of which, go ahead, John.
I was going to say, back in 2020, when all the softwood lumber skyrocketed because everybody was either building houses or at home and working on DIY projects, did we see that in the hardwood market as much? Did you see that, Logan, or was that more?
A little bit, but not near as much as the softwoods.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
I mean, I think the bigger trend we saw during the hardwood markets was the portion of that hardwood lumber industry that is getting used for trim.
Right.
So like, it's going to be that thinner, maybe 9/16 stock that is going up because it's stuff that's getting used for baseboard and trim and stuff like that.
And more of your common, like oak, cherry, walnut.
It didn't really move a whole lot.
Yeah.
So, speaking of the softwoods, Phil.
yeah,
I thought it was funny how you were raving about that white pine I brought in for you. Like you said, it was working really nicely.
yeah, it's amazing. It was I didn't see photos of the tree that it came from, but because white pines, this might surprise people, aren't really native to Iowa.
No, they're a decorative tree.
So, and most of the time, like there's several white pines in my neighborhood, and there was one that got taken down within the last year or two, just a few blocks from my house, that I was kind of sad to see go, because it was a tall tree. But a lot of times you see white pines around here just because of environmental stresses, and like I live in town, so they're city trees, which they've they got street smarts, but they've led a hard life.
Yep.
So they usually end up, forking real early, or the crown gets lopped, and then they kind of go all flat topped, and it's relatively stunted. So white pines grow annually by whorls. So the branches come out horizontally from the trunk. Like every year it grows up a little bit and then sends out branches, and then the next year grows up. And a lot of times you'll see those whorls are pretty close together just because of, again, environmental stresses. But this one, there's a couple of places. Well, the boards on those are like 16 inches wide.
Yep.
Or so. And on some of them, the whorls are, I don't know, probably almost 2 feet apart.
Yeah.
So
looking at the board, you would have a knot every
year 2 feet
from where that branch came out.
Yeah. And actually it would be like several. So depending on, where you are in the tree, like it's several branches come out.
Yeah.
So for those of you who have permanent Christmas trees and how you stack the parts together and the branches all just kind of are hinged all at one level, that's kind of how they grow, except without the hinges.
Yep.
So when you slice that into boards, obviously you're going to see 1 or 2 knots in there. And, I don't mind quote unquote country style look for furniture, but some of them, when it just looks like they've been shotgunned with knots, it's not the look that I'm going for. I want to be able to show off pine like a hardwood. So there's a couple of projects that I have in mind for those boards. And because of how this tree grew, I can use that and get full lengths without having to have gigantic knots in it, which is very advantageous to me.
Well, it's funny because I have 2 more white pine logs laying here. So those white pines that you have, those came from Bondurant, Iowa, which is right outside Des Moines. There was 4 of them that my buddies took down. I took 2 of them home. He took 2 of them home after we cut them. And I had those stacked here drying for 2 years now. Earlier this year, when that tornado came through, I think we talked about that, I took a bunch of white pines down from a property, 5 minutes from my house. And I cut some of that. I cut 2 of those logs. Let me think about this. Maybe I only have 1 white pine left because I cut 2 of those logs into 6-inch wide boards for my shop use. Either I'm going to use it as an accent wall, or maybe I'll use it as, kind of like a wainscoting around. I haven't really decided, but that was my intention. So I cut those into 6-inch wide boards, 1x6s basically.
Yeah.
And another one of those logs that I took home, I cut for my buddy Rusty Chernis down in Atlanta. And Rusty, he has a spoke shave article coming up in this next issue of Pop Wood on making a traditional style wooden spoke shave. And he is also a chair maker. Does a lot of chairs in different styles, Boggs chairs, Windsor chairs, stuff like that. And he was asking me about getting white pine because I guess getting white pine chair seats, which is the traditional wood for chair seats, is pretty hard. I mean, you can get them and you can order them online. You can order a chair seat blank, and I don't recall exactly what the dimensions are, but I want to say it's roughly 18 inches deep by 20 or 22 wide.
Sure.
Okay? And you need it to be clean and clear as possible. So he was saying you can order them online. They're like $120 to $130 a piece plus shipping. And I'm like, dude, I got white pine laying at my house. Like, I'm driving down to Tennessee to do another photo shoot. Like, let's meet halfway. It's a 7-hour drive for me, 4 hours for him from Atlanta. So I sliced up one of these white pines for him and brought it down, and it worked perfectly. Those whorls were like 23 inches apart. So it's like you basically, for every chair seat that you could get out of each board, you had maybe 3 inches of waste where the next series of knots were. So it worked out really nicely. And it's a nice, clean looking wood. When it is not super knotty, like you said, Phil, it is so nice. And I actually just saw a photo from Lost Art Press. Megan Fitzpatrick, former editor at Popwood, she's teaching I think a Dutch tool chest class, and they're working on dovetails on these massive sides of clear white pine, and it just looks nice.
Oh yeah.
And I actually think the most recent issue of Fine Woodworking, didn't they have was that a white pine shaker box on the front of it?
Yes.
Yeah, that was a Bexford project. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's got a really fun look to it. I
don't know.
I think country
I'm not
furniture
going vegan, but
yeah, I am. I mean, country furniture with all the little heart cutouts and
yeah,
painted fruit and whatever, and
Yeah.
gigantic knots really gave pine a bad reputation. But like, unlike walnut for John, there is a delight in cutting white pine that it
there
just
is. It smells great. I will say I do have a deep, dark secret. And it involves the style of furniture, kind of. And it reared its head this weekend while I was deer hunting. I have this weird desire to build a set of, like, what would you call them? Like cabin-style furniture, where it's like the logs with the tenon ends and mortises and stuff. I have a weird desire to do a set out of that. Or like that.
I can see that. Okay. There's a place for it, and I think it can be done well, like everything.
Yes.
Even in Tarja.
Yes.
So, yeah. So anyway, I want to build some stuff out of pine. It works really well with hand tools. I like doing hand tool work. And
have you noticed in this pine that it's sticky at all?
No.
Have you found sap pot? Really?
Not so far. You know, like when I did my workbench, and I did that out of fir. You had that white fir, and that fir had gigantic sap pockets in it. It was like, and it was really weird because you wouldn't really see them until after I had glued up a panel or something, and I'd come in the next day, and because I had resawed and planed all the boards or whatever, and then I'd come back and you see, like, you have to like scrape up all your glue drips or whatever, and then on the bottom side is just this big drip. It's like somebody squirted honey all over the bottom side of the panel or something, and you got to clean those off. And
interesting. So the standard in the kiln drying industry is you set pitch, and that is done in softwood. It's not done in hardwood. It's done in softwoods, where after the timber has gone through its drying cycle and it's reached the target, 7, 8, 9%, whatever they're shooting for, they then crank the heat up and they get the internal temperature to 100, and I want to say it's 165 degrees for 7 hours. And what that does is that turns that pitch hard, so it will not drip anymore.
Yeah.
So is that medium rare at 165?
Yes.
I think that's like medium well.
Yeah.
You still have
still a little pink.
Still juicy in the middle, but
Yep. Not shoe leather. No, it's I've never done that with softwoods, and I think my buddy Bobby, if we were going to put some softwoods in his kiln and try to set that pitch, I think we need to add some auxiliary heaters to get it that hot.
Yeah.
Because his is a dehumidification kiln, but it does heat up. I just think you need to add something. Once concrete's going in my shop this week, I will probably put a kiln in there, and I will probably try to get some form of auxiliary heat in there to do that in softwoods. Now, my fear is if I say, okay, I'm going to cut all this white pine because it's great to work with and whatever, but then we cook it and we set the pitch, is that going to reduce its workability? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because, I think we all agree, air dry just works so much better than kiln dry does.
Oh, yeah.
So, I don't know.
Yeah, it feels like it's a lot less brittle on most materials. Oh, one other thing that I was going to say, working on Christmas project this week and doing some carving. And there's nothing like carving to really show how little a person knows about sharpening than to deal with carving tools. Because I can sharpen chisels, plane irons, scrapers, to the point that they perform pretty well. I still have a lot to learn, I'm sure, and practice does that. But when you have something like this little bad boy, a tiny little, it's a palm carving tool for the people who are watching on the radio, V tool, and getting a V tool sharp is like sharpening 3 tools at the same time. Because the sides are like chisels and the bottom is like a really tiny little gouge. And it's tough to get a decent bevel all the way around on there. So, and I modified this particular one. I'll put a photo of it on the show notes page. After reading an article by Al Breed, rather than having a very square front edge to it, I have it so that the wings are kind of angled forward a little bit so that it does better, supposed to do better on cross grain cuts. And then I lowered the angle underneath so you can use it at a lower angle in use without having to have it pitched up so high, based on Al Breed's advice on there. And I've gotten it to cut, and working with the grain, it does pretty well. Across the grain, it was like I was using a nail. It just kind of scratched its way through. So then at your suggestion today, or this week, Logan, we went over to the Tormek, where we have a CBN wheel on one side, and used I don't know, what was it called? The like short tool holder or something like that. It was
the short tool jig, yeah.
And I was kind of surprised on how well that worked.
Yeah.
And,
well, I mean, I think that's a 400 grit stone, so it's pretty fine stone. Like, you're not going to grind a ton of material away with it. So
right. Which is, I think, my fear, especially because I've been doing most of my sharpening at home is just with bench stones. Just because that's a little bit more straightforward for me. I'm trying to keep things relatively simple. I do have a little hand crank grinder, a 4-inch wheel on that. And that works pretty well, but even then, when you're at a grinder with little tiny carving tools, you can remove a lot of material pretty quickly and dork stuff up. And that's always been my fear. So trying it out with the Tormek and then, strapping the snot out of it, I was finally able to get satisfactory cross-grain cuts on it. So kudos to you. And you can learn something new every day.
Well, the thing I think is the most frustrating about carving tools is the fact that you almost need your tools sharper for softwood than you do hardwood.
Yeah, I can see that.
You know what I mean? Because the softwood fibers are much less dense. So if your tools are not sharp, it will crush instead of cut.
Yeah.
I mean, same thing kind of holds true with hardwood, but I think there's enough density there that it can kind of fake it.
Yeah.
If it's semi-sharp, you can push hard enough that it will still cut. It's going to crush a little bit, but it's not as noticeable as it would be with softwoods, because softwoods, they compress.
Yeah. And I picked up these tools used, and part of it is not knowing, especially with carving tools with a complex profile, it's not knowing what you're looking for. Mm-hmm. It's like, I don't know what the goal is here. How do I know that I've gotten it sharp? What's a reasonable expectation in terms of resistance and cut quality and all that kind of stuff. So, and it's like, you just don't know until you do it. And then if it doesn't work, then it's like, now what? I don't know what I did wrong necessarily.
Then you sell it to somebody else.
I've done that.
Yeah.
All right. You guys get any other updates? Concrete comes this week for you?
Yeah, I'm thinking they were supposed to come today. They bumped me till tomorrow. They have a bigger job that is taking. They're about a half day behind, and he said, "I want to send you the A crew and not the B crew." He said the A crew's great, B crew's pretty good. The C crew needs to stick to their footings. So I'm like, all right, I'm fine with that. Like as long as it comes this week. My biggest thing is I don't know the concrete world at all. I know nothing about concrete, but it's gonna be really cold tomorrow, like 37 and raining. So I'm assuming they can mix something in to help it cure during the cold.
Sure.
They talked about tenting the building and putting heaters in there and stuff. I don't know, man. As long as it goes in and it doesn't crack, that's all I care about.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So I do have to go install my. I have to install a thermostat inside the concrete. So I got to go tape some PEX tubing, the end of some PEX tubing, and run it to the center of the concrete slab.
Okay.
And that is for a thermostat wire that measures the temperature of the concrete. I think it's like a safety thing. So it's like with the radiant heat in the floor, it measures the concrete to make sure the concrete's not like scorching hot. I think. I'm sure my guy Nelson will tell me if I'm wrong on that. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now I remember a neighbor of mine, a couple of houses up, where their house is, put in a new driveway to connect to a garage that he had built in the back, and he had a section that was extra thick concrete, and he put it in late summer, and he spent like almost 2 days where he was just out there with the garden hose running on it, because you could walk on it, and it was totally shaded by trees around it, and it was like almost too hot to walk on.
Yeah. Yep. So actually, one of our editor, Eric Loggy, he's a former concrete guy.
Yeah.
I should ask him.
There you go.
I did concrete for a summer back in college.
Did you?
Yeah. So never made it to. They never let me do any finishing work, so I must have been on the B or C team or whatever. They did let me use the broom a couple times to do a broom finish, but other than that, it was slinging a shovel and come along, and that's it.
Yep.
So.
So I have a couple things that are getting poured. I don't think they're going to do my back patio out here, because it's like, well, if I'm going to have a concrete truck here, might as well do my back patio. That's been on our list since we built our house.
Yeah.
I have the porch area on the building, on the shop, is going to be a broomed finish. But everything else inside, I'm going to have them power trowel so it's smooth. Because then the storage side of my shop, where I'm keeping lumber and all that stuff, it will be easier to clean up.
Right.
And B, I'm going to do an epoxy floor in the shop. So it's like, I think that needs to be a smooth finish. So haven't decided if I'm going to contract that out or if I'm going to do one of the DIY kits. My dad's done a couple DIY kits in his garages, and they've always looked really nice. So
Okay.
yeah.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So that just postpones your move-in date then, right?
The epoxy, yeah. I can at least get stuff into the building, get my basement cleared.
That's true.
But yeah, my garage doors should hopefully be here in a week or two, supposedly. They weren't supposed to ship till March or April, so if they show up anytime this month, I'll be happy.
All right.
So
that'll be cool. Have it all closed in then, or fully closed in.
Yep.
John, any other updates?
Nope. Just chugging along. The next ShopNotes and Woodsmith have to go out, so
Yep.
same old, same old.
It's the magazine life.
Yep.
All right, I want to thank Shaper Tools for sponsoring today's episode. They have the Shaper Origin. They have an offer going where you can try it in your shop risk-free for 30 days just to kick the tires on it, see whether you like it, and then play around with it. They also have a ton of stuff on their website, classes and plans and all kinds of stuff to help you get used to the tool and know exactly what it's capable of. There's just, if nothing else, it's just fun to learn about how other people are using the Shaper Origin. So you want to check that out at shapertools.com. If you have any questions, comments, or smart remarks, you can send them on an email, woodsmith@woodsmith.com. You can check out our show notes page at woodsmith.com/podcasts and watch the podcast on YouTube, or if that's just a more convenient way for you to listen to your podcast. I'm also going to make a plea for you to rate and review the podcast wherever you download it from to help other woodworkers find the ShopNotes podcast. And now that ShopNotes is back, please subscribe. You can check it out at shopnotes.com. We'll see you next week, everybody. Bye.